Alright everyone, it's time for Occult Literature, video number 381, Babylonians and Assyrians, Life and Customs. This is a full-length work. This is 208 pages and was considerably larger than that initially. Formatting applies when you're talking about anything from the middle of the 19th through the middle of the 20th centuries. 1.5 lines, pretty standard, so things compress a little bit. Link in the description to my edition of this work on Amazon. Second and third links to my books, blogs. Very good work. This is effectively academic, and only part of it deals with religion, occultism, ritualism, etc., spirituality, the spiritual experience of man. But especially in the case of Babylon, everything related to governance effectively is an offshoot of that anyway, because of a very big difference between the way in which the Babylonians and Assyrians govern. In Babylon, everything was conceded to be sourced from the gods. So the king could not rule without effectively becoming the son of a god through ritualism, through certain rituals. The priesthood, therefore, which knew the rituals, prescribed the incense and the sacrifice and the laws and so forth, technically speaking, had more power than the king until the king was officially deified. In Assyria, you have a quasi-deification too, but who has installed them? The military. Much more secular, much more legalistic. A big part of this actually deals with the correspondence of cuneiform. A lot of what we know about Babylon, Assyria, and in fact Sumeria before that is cuneiform. Tablets and so forth. They used clay tablets effectively the way we use letters now. In fact, they had wax-sealed envelopes that were very much the same as correspondence, roughly up until the fairly modern period. That's basically how long-distance communication occurs before the telegraph. And even then, of course, it's transcribing it onto your paper and typing it up, and so it's basically the same. It's shipped more locally, and it's a little bit more efficient because of relay stations. Here's the thing. This particular work makes an interesting differentiation. This isn't particularly occult, but I'll just point this out because I thought it was fascinating. In Babylon, therefore, you have this huge number of remains. A lot of it is correspondence, or it's related to trade. It's like the tablets that are associated with a sealed urn full of some good, or some measure of wheat or something. So there's that. But a lot of it was personal correspondence, between lovers, between members of a family, or is legalistic. In Assyria, a lot of it's military and diplomatic. That's the main gist of 90% of the cuneiform remnants. At least it had been unearthed here at Tel Amarna and Marna and other locations. It's partially an archaeological and linguistic work as well. It also goes deep into their religions. And there were differences there too. The entire final section is fundamentally about Babylonian religion, some of the gods, some of the customs related to them, history of, sort of the backstory of their deities. And at all times, especially with the Babylonians, less with the Assyrians, their deities were thought of constantly. It would be, in all of the correspondence effectively, to the royals, certainly. They're saying, oh, hail Ningil Usur, or something like that. May Merodach guide thee, may your reign extend forever, and you find immortality. It's very flowery and theatrical and formal, actually, when you look at it. And you see as well a whole host of protective charms and curses and things of that nature. There's a whole section that actually deals with some of the sorcery and the priesthood and so forth in Babylon specifically, with regards to evil spirits and people that were said to wander around at night. Nighttime was a very scary period, so you had Lilitu, or various linguistic offshoots of this concept, sort of the Lord S of the dead or the damned of evil, essentially. You had a whole host of sorcerers and wizards and sorceresses and various entities sort of off in the dunes just beyond the edge of town, of course, or in the slummy areas, the less well-lit areas that troubled children, that tried to grab you, vampirize you, kill you, and so forth. And they had various incantations, little figures, actually, often. This was also practiced in medicine. They had little figures of gods or other beings. They'd pose them around the room to protect you and say incantations. They'd put them by your door to keep witches away, and so forth. Interesting, extremely lengthy. That particular part that deals with the medicine and incantation side is, I think, the largest part of this work. But again, a lot of it also deals with trade has all the weights and measures, their names and so forth, as they were understood, again, more than 100 years ago when this work was written. All the weights and measures, trade, hugely outsized, and then their legal system. There is a huge difference between Babylonia and Assyria, just as there were differences between the latter-day Babylonians and like the primitive Sumerian cultures before them, thousands of years earlier, like with Göbekli Tepe, which we're not even 100% sure what that culture was like. I think that it was essentially a pantheon, a collective of different tribes that came together for feasts or something like that at that particular locale, and so it was semi-organized at that point, semi-nomadic too. The big differences between the two of them all explained in this work. Very good work. If you're into religious history, especially Babylon, Assyria, and some mention of Sumeria, you'll like this. If you're just interested generally in spirituality as it talks about superstition, it's loaded with that. Basically every correspondence has some spiritual reference as well. Again, link in the description of my edition of this work on Amazon. Second and third links are to my books blogs. That's about all. Peace out.